There's a legit serial killer on the loose in South Africa right now. This is Murder Week for December 7th, 2018. Turning to old business. Two very prolific Mexican serial killers were arrested when they were found pushing a baby carriage full of body parts down the street a few months ago. During the police investigation, it came out that a serial killer who dismembered his victims and fed their body parts to his dogs claims he sold one woman's baby to a couple who have now been arrested. Juan Carlos confessed to killing around 20 women after he and his wife Patricia were arrested while pushing a pram full of human remains. He told police he sold victim Nancy's daughter Valentina to a couple only named as Rosa and Adrian N. for under 600 pounds. Their lawyer, Santiago Garcia, said they bought the girl as a humanitarian act. They had tried for years to have a baby and then a person arrived and cheated them. They've also been charged with offering to bribe the police. And the Border Patrol serial killer Juan David Ortiz, accused of killing 4 sex workers earlier this year in Laredo, Texas, is probably going to get the death penalty. He's been indicted for capital murder. Meanwhile, he's not having a great time in prison.
At this hour. Back in October, Ortiz's attorney complained to the court that Ortiz was being subjected to cruel and unusual punishment because he was allegedly being held in a padded cell without any clothing, and that he was also not being given utensils to eat with. We spoke to Sheriff Martin Cuellar about that complaint, and he says those accusations are completely false. Cuellar says Ortiz is being held in a regular jail cell under
Womp womp. And turning to new business, the man known as the Phantom Killer is back behind bars.
All new tonight on this Friday, the so-called Phantom Killer back behind bars. Tonight, we have a major development in a CBS 5 investigation that has outraged our viewers.
A serial killer who targeted young girls was released from prison early and is now back in prison. Morgan Lowe is here with this breaking story.
William Huff murdered 2 young girls and targeted a third back in 1967. The Arizona Board of Executive Clemency let him out of prison early, and this week, Huff's parole officer found an 8-year-old girl in Huff's home. Huff referred to himself as the Phantom in a note he sent to the Sierra Vista police chief 50 years ago. He terrorized the community over a summer, murdering and disemboweling 7-year-old Cindy Cleland and 6-year-old Janelle Haynes. Huff was 17 at the time, convicted and sentenced to 40 years to life in prison. 2 years ago, the Arizona Board of Executive Clemency released him to home arrest. We found Huff riding his bike around his new neighborhood with kids around. None of the neighbors knew who he was or what he had done.
I hate to say I told you so, but this is one of those things where I told you so kind of comes into play.
She told him so. And ENCA, a great source from South Africa on true crime news, is reporting that there is a killer on the loose in Meyerton, South Africa.
The site where the body of the latest victim of a suspected serial rapist and killer was found. 16-year-old Zoleka Ngwenyeni's body was found next to blankets and used condoms in this field last month. She was the 5th woman to have been raped and killed, and her family still hasn't come to grips with the murder.
The message to the government is that they must try to organize the police as they can to prevent other children from what did happen.
Now residents of Meyerton are calling on the municipality to intervene and send a clear message to the killer.
We want these trees to be cut so that we can...
Meanwhile, there is a legit escaped serial killer on the loose in South Africa right now in Johannesburg. An alleged serial killer was among the 2 awaiting trial prisoners who escaped from the South Gothenburg High Court in Johannesburg on Wednesday afternoon. One is an alleged serial killer accused in connection with 2 murder cases and 1 attempted murder. He abandoned his bail application at the Palm Ridge Magistrates Court on Tuesday, the day before his escape. His fellow escapee appeared in court for a murder committed in Jeppe in April, as well as the alleged possession of an unlawful firearm and ammunition. Both men will now have an additional charge of escaping from lawful custody added to their names. And from the Oregonian, the suppression of Homer Jackson's alleged confession is the latest setback in a case that has lingered for 3 years after police announced they had finally solved the asphyxiation deaths of 4 African-American women who had been sexually assaulted and their bodies dumped in North Portland in the 1980s. Police arrested him in 2015 and accused him of strangling 2 teenagers and 2 women in their 20s who worked as prostitutes in the 1980s, and he's pleaded not guilty to aggravated murder charges. The court found that the 2 veteran Portland police detectives' methods and inducements may have persuaded the defendant to tell the detectives what they wanted to hear, whether or not that was the truth. Moving on, Joseph James DeAngelo cannot afford a private attorney, so the judge ruled on Thursday that he's keeping in place a public defender in a case that's expected to cost taxpayers $20 million. Joseph DeAngelo is a former police officer facing 26 murder and kidnapping charges. He could be required to reimburse the county to the extent he is able to after the trial. He's 73 years old. And in killer-related news, Dennis Rader's daughter, Carrie Rawson, her book, A Serial Killer's Daughter, My Story of Faith, Love, and Overcoming, is set for release next month, and a link to that story is in the description. And that's all I've got for you today. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Just 7 episodes left. 7? Maybe 6? I don't know. I don't even remember. It's been fun. Real fun, guys. But we're coming into the home stretch.